Welcome back to Amerisogyny. I'm your host, Hannah Blue. You're listening to episode 80, Shedding Skin. Listeners, we have made it to 80 episodes. And yeah, I'm going to toot my own horn because that is a milestone in my book. Let me tell you something. It's not easy working full time, writing books, and podcasting, but I do it because it helps my mental health. I like advocating for people, and I like sharing things. Today's episode is called Shedding Skin. Now, I can guess what you're wondering. Now, Hannah, humans don't shed skin. That's for snakes. But we can shed things too, if we want. And sometimes we have to preserve our mental health. So what do I mean by shedding skin? Here goes. Attitudes, perceptions. You might have words with somebody. Shed it because it's not going to help you in the end if it blocks your progress. I'm on this app called Threads. And for the most part, I like it because I get on there and I mind my business. You won't see me participating in witch hunts. You won't see me trying to drag somebody for views. And what I've noticed in 2025 is for bigots, Nazis, Nazi lovers, and even self-hating people of color, that's a no-no. For a Black woman to stand up for herself, that is a no-no. Because when you do, you get called angry and bitter. You're causing trouble. You're spreading division. Let me tell you something, sisters that are listening to me all around the world. Don't let anybody do that to you. It is 2025, and you have every right to stand your ground and stand up for yourself. If you feel you are being disrespected, stand on that, no matter who gets mad. Because if you don't, then you're teaching people how to treat you. I'm very good at reading energy. I haven't always been able to do it, but once I hit my 40s, I realized that I could. Now, the church folk call that discernment. It means you can spot where someone is coming from. No matter what they say or how they say it, if you read their energy and it's not on point, trust that energy. I'll give you an example. I went to the doctor's office and was checked in by this nurse. She seemed very pleasant, kept a very pleasant tone, but her energy was nasty. Now get what I'm saying? She wasn't nasty to me. She didn't say anything out of the way to me, but her energy was dark. Couldn't put my finger on it. So by the end of the visit, I had seen the doctor. I was ready to be checked out. And she comes up to me, the nurse, and she goes, "What day do you want to come back?" I said, "Any day except for Monday. I can come anytime." Because I guess she was scheduling me maybe 2 to 3 weeks out. We have PTO time. Well, I didn't pay attention to my discharge papers. I just left. But when I got home, I noticed the return appointment, and guess what day it was on? You guessed it, a Monday. I had to call back and reschedule the appointment. And here's what made me know I wasn't crazy. The scheduler said, "Did you want to see the doctor that late in the year?" I said, "No." She said, "Well, we have plenty of earlier appointments. Do you want to come back earlier than this?" I said, "Sure. Just make sure it's not a Monday." And she scheduled me with the proper date and time. The energy that I felt on that nurse was correct. I clearly said, "Please schedule me any day except for on Monday," and that's exactly what she did. Why did she do it? I don't know, because I don't know what's going on in her head. But there was something about me that she did not like. So I'll say again, when you feel energy on people, trust it. They don't have to be in your face to do it. You can be online. There's a lot of energy that I feel from people online. That's why I don't mess with them. I'm an introvert anyway. So you're not going to catch me talking to a lot of people anyway. But when I feel energy, I trust it. But going back to what I said, because we need to get into the episode, stand up for yourselves, women. Do not allow anybody to label you as angry, aggressive, overreacting. These are words that Black women have heard since we were little girls, since long before we even knew what they meant. You have a voice, and it's valid, so use it. All right, that is my little introduction. Let's get into episode 80, shall we? When I stumbled across this story, I said, oh yeah, I definitely want to talk about this. If you are Gen X or a millennial and you have dieting issues, honey, this is why. Throughout the 90s and the 2000s, we were bombarded with images and idiotic notions of how women should look, how much they should weigh. It triggered us. And for some of us, we're still dealing with the ramifications from that. Let's talk fat phobia. Over 27 years ago, a magazine put a skinny woman on the cover and framed her as a body you can relate to. But for many of us, it wasn't a body that we could relate to, not by a long shot. If you grew up in the 90s or the 2000s, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. We were bombarded by women on covers with perfect breasts, flat stomachs, with hips that were just the right width. And we were told, if you just get your fat butts off the couch, you too can look like this. This is reality. When in fact, it wasn't. It never has been. In many of these magazines, and I'm not going to call them out because you were there, you lived through it right with me, they suggested that if you had cellulite or stretch marks, you weren't normal. And as very young girls, we internalized that. Fast forward to 2025, fat phobia is still alive and well. There was also the notion that you had to be slim to get a man's attention. I pulled this excerpt from 1996. This girl returned from a fat camp, not my words, that's what's in the article, and lost over 25 pounds. Well, here's what she said. Keep in mind, again, this is 1996. I finally managed to flirt and have guys flirt back. My confidence grows every day. And now, a couple of years later, the hot girl I knew I was, but nobody else could see, is more and more evident. Meaning, when I was fat, I wasn't hot. Yeah, this was in 1996, but it could be today. If you're a fan of Lizzo's, then you already know she was dragged until she lost weight. And she looks great now, but she looked great then. But you have a lot of people hiding under the guise of they're so concerned for your health, they're actually doing you a favor when they drag you all over social media. We've talked about this before, right here on this podcast. But in the 90s, you remember how people talked about Britney Spears' stomach? 1,000 crunches a day. You ever read Sweet Valley High? The twins were a size 6. How about Jessica Simpson's jeans? Remember they dragged her? The girl wasn't big. She was a little bigger than she was when she first came out, but she wasn't fat. They dragged that girl from here to Tallahassee, Florida. And who could forget when Janet Jackson's That's the Way Love Goes dropped? Her abs. Hello? What girl didn't want to look like Janet Jackson on that cover? There were rumors floating that she had 2 of her ribs removed to get that look, which she later debunked. And let me say, I'm no longer mad at Janet Jackson because I have learned everybody has a right to their opinion, even though she was wrong about Kamala Harris. She's back to being my girl. Okay. But yeah, everybody wanted those abs. And do you remember when model Kate Moss said, nothing tastes as good as skinny feels? Another woman they dragged for being chubby was Kate Winslet. Let me tell you something. I saw the Titanic. Kate was not big in that movie. Not at all. Oh, Black women were dragged too. Tyra Banks was called Thyra Banks when she appeared on a cover. Who remembers Abercrombie? I couldn't get an arm in any of their clothing. Remember Slim Fast? I was there. A shake for breakfast, a shake for lunch, and a sensible dinner is all it takes. But you get the picture. This is why mentally we are so messed up when it comes to weight and who deserves the hot guy and who doesn't. This is where the eating disorders came from and body negativity. But thank God, around a decade ago, something changed. And we noticed something beautiful. Fuller figured women started accepting their bodies. They started wearing what they wanted to wear. We started seeing them in more roles. There's a beautiful fuller figured woman in Ryan Coogler's Sinners. Absolutely gorgeous. Isn't it about time we started seeing more of that? I saw a discussion a while back, I think it was on Facebook, where a brother said, there are a lot of men who do like fuller figured women, but they're afraid of what others might say. They don't want to be judged. To that, I say these are not the guys for you. And I'm just being real. If somebody cannot celebrate who you are in public, they don't need to be in your face in private. And that's just that. There's nothing wrong with you. Be deliberate about celebrating who you are every day. Life is a gift. Don't take it for granted. And here's something else we're going to be deliberate about. Food. That's right. We're going to talk about food because you know what? Talking about food, looking at food, eating food, and even reading about food puts most people in a good mood. Now, I don't particularly care for breakfast, but when I was a kid, I loved my cereals. So when I found this article discussing discontinued cereals from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, it piqued my interest. So tell me if you've ever heard of these. 1978 Crazy Cow cereal. I didn't eat it. I was guzzling milk in a bottle. But get this, Crazy Cow never made it out of the 70s. Wow. Crazy, isn't it? Next up, the 80s. Let's talk about banana frosted flakes. Food tasted better in the 80s. That's just my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. Well, allegedly, banana frosted flakes had pieces of real banana baked into each piece. Now, in 2019, Kellogg's brought a limited edition banana cream frosted flakes. Never tried them, but they do sound good. Here's another cereal I remember from the 80s, and it dropped in 1979. Waffle O's. If anybody ate them, let me know. I certainly remember this cereal from the 90s, 1991's Cinnamon Mini Buns. They were so good. And here's a cereal that's near and dear to my heart. I used to eat it while watching my Saturday morning cartoons. Smurf Berry Crunch. That's right, 1982. And it had a nasty little side effect. It turned your poop Smurf blue. I remember Smurf Magic Berries too. That came out in 1987. Another favorite from the 80s, Ghostbusters. That dropped in 1985. Now remember, in a previous episode, I told you if a cartoon was really popular, it had action figures and sometimes it had food. And that's the case with Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters was huge in the day for kids. And that was the case for Ghostbusters. They had action figures and cereal. Now, when the Ghostbusters movie Afterlife dropped in 2021, the cereal was brought back briefly. I miss that cereal. And I miss my childhood. And that's it for the discontinued cereals we loved. Here are 8 popular Pop-Tart flavors that are no longer around. Now, I only like Pop-Tarts with no frosting, but I have a feeling I'm calling out some favorites here. Number 1 is frosted grape. It dropped in 1967 and was discontinued in 2017. They tried to bring them back in 2022, but it was discontinued by 2024. The next one is frosted chocolate chip cookie dough. And here's what's hilarious. When they were discontinued in 2022, people signed an online petition for Kellogg's to bring them back. They must have been really good. The next discontinued Pop-Tart flavor is Splits Chocolate Strawberry. They came out in 2007 and were discontinued in 2012. Now, they tried to bring them back in 2018, but I guess they didn't get enough buzz. The next one is a flavor I love in ice cream, mint chocolate chip. It was released in 2006 and lived for a very short time. They were discontinued in 2007, according to Kellogg's. Not enough people bought them. Moving on to frosted red velvet. Now, I love red velvet cake. And these dropped in 2012, but they went off the shelves in 2017. In 2020, they got a bit of a makeover, red velvet cupcake Pop-Tarts, but they only lasted up until 2021. The next one is guava mango. Now, I've never heard of these, but they did drop in the summer of 2008, and it seems they were very popular in the Caribbean and in Latin America. The last one is strawberry cheese Danish. They also dropped in 2007, but by 2009, the honeymoon was over. Here's another one that launched an online petition in 2016. They must have been really good, but unfortunately, they didn't come back. But don't let that make you sad. I have a couple of recipes you can make right at home anytime you like. This recipe promises you can make the easiest cinnamon rolls. And you don't need a stand mixer, lots of kneading, or even rising time. Sounds good to me. Yep, these rolls say goodbye to yeast and hello self-rising flour. Here's what you'll need to make these yummy cinnamon rolls. Cooking spray or butter for coating the pan. 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar, divided. 1 tablespoon of ground cinnamon. 5 cups of self-rising flour plus more for dusting. 2 cups of whole or 2% milk. And 8 tablespoons of unsalted butter, melted and divided. For the glaze, you'll need 2 cups of powdered sugar, 1/4 of a cup of whole milk or 2%, plus more if needed, and 1/4 teaspoon of fine salt. Preheat your oven to 350 degrees and coat a 9 by 13 inch baking dish with cooking spray or butter. For the filling, you're going to mix a 1/2 cup of the sugar and the cinnamon together in a small bowl. Set it aside. Now it's time to make the dough. Whisk the flour and the remaining 1/4 cup of sugar in a bowl. Then you're going to mix the milk and 4 tablespoons of melted butter together in a medium bowl. Add the milk mixture to the flour mixture and stir with a rubber spatula or wooden spoon until a soft dough forms and no dry bits of flour can be seen. Then you're going to knead the dough. Transfer it to a floured work surface, sprinkle with more flour, and then knead the dough just until it's smooth. And you can always sprinkle more flour to prevent sticking. Don't over knead it or the cinnamon rolls will be tough. Now you're going to roll the dough out. Flour up that rolling pin and roll out the dough into a 24 by 10 inch long rectangle and about 1/4 inch thick. Have the longer side facing you. Brush 2 tablespoons of melted butter on the surface of the dough. Make sure you use it all. And sprinkle the cinnamon sugar mixture evenly, leaving a 1/2 inch border. Then you're going to roll the dough up. Starting at the long end that's closest to you, roll up the dough tightly into a log and pinch the seam together at the top. Then you're going to cut the dough crosswise into 15 pieces and fill up the baking dish. Do 5 across and 3 down. Make sure you butter the rolls and then bake them for 35 minutes. And don't forget to stick a toothpick in the center and make sure that comes out clean. Making the glaze is easy. You just mix the powdered sugar with the milk and the salt, whisk until smooth, and set it aside. Once the rolls are done, you're going to place the baking dish on a wire rack to cool, and then drizzle evenly with the glaze. Allow them to cool for at least 15 minutes before serving. I like the rolls that have the lemon curd or strawberry or blueberry filling in them. I think those are so yummy. Nothing against cinnamon. I love cinnamon, but I'm more partial to fruit rolls. And of course, you can substitute the cinnamon filling anytime you like. That's what makes baking fun, adding your own little spin to it. Well, people, we've talked about fat phobia and the yummiest sweet things that I hope has brought back some fond memories. And before I go, I want to let you guys know again, the first book in my Coldarius series will be releasing on May 1st. Coldarius is the prequel to my trilogy, Coldarius. And the first book is called The Origin of Gallium Book 1. You can pick it up at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Kobo, and more. And you can also go to my website, www.dlhannah.com, if you live outside of the U.S., and find it in your local bookstore for the following countries: Austria, Australia, Canada, Luxembourg, South Korea, and Switzerland. And a huge thank you to everyone who has supported my series. I love you guys. Thank you so much for buying it, reading it, loving it, reviewing it. I can never thank you enough. And with that, I'm out of time. If you learned anything in today's episode, feel free to follow me. By now you know where. Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Samsung, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, iHeartRadio, and more. It's the weekend, folks. And if you have time, try out this amazing cinnamon roll recipe. Who doesn't love yummy sweets over the weekend, huh? Be easy. Have a good weekend. Take care of yourselves. I will be back with episode 81. And as